all copywriting is at the end of the day is writing in a way to get someone to take some sort of an action. So you're trying to compel people to take an action.
You're listening to the Architect My Life podcast, a show dedicated to empowering women architects and designers to achieve business growth, financial freedom, and health and wellness. I'm Aya Schlachter, your host and CEO of MGS Global Group. Our company provides Revit, ArchiCAD, and CAD drafting services to busy architects and design firm owners. MGS Global started as a part-time gig when I was a new mom, but it has now grown into a thriving business that provides drafting support to creatives, helping everyone maintain a healthy work-life balance. This podcast is proudly presented by MGS Global Group. Now let's dive into this episode. Hi everyone, our guest this week is Nikita Morell. Nikita is a copywriter for Only Architects. She is also the founder of Architects WordShop, an online shop dedicated to helping architects with their words. Nikita specializes in making architecture websites sound more human, less robot, so architects can get a steady stream of ridiculously good projects. Nikita analyzed over 663 architecture websites. You can see the results on her website. I'm so thrilled to talk to her today. Welcome to the show, Nikita.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
I've been following you on LinkedIn and I love all of the content that you produce, especially for architecture firms, because copy is the most important thing. And minutes in the website, you will lose your clients, right? Or potential clients. I know there's a statistic around that. But before we get started, introduce yourself. Was there a childhood experience or a person that motivated you to pursue marketing?
It's one of those things I think I just fell into. I was always a bit arty. My mom's an artist and my dad's a chartered accountant. So after school, I kind of did a commerce degree and an arts degree. I did that and just fell into the world of, big brand marketing. I worked for L'Oreal and a big bakery company here called George Weston Foods. Soon, I think a few years in, I just realized this kind of big corporate life wasn't for me. The journey kind of continued. But yeah, definitely, I think my parents and just seeing my dad started his own firm and just watching that small business kind of grow has always been interesting.
So he has a small business. That's where you got your entrepreneurial spirit. So tell me about how you got your scholarship in Boston. Like, how did you get to the US from Australia? That's quite a transition. And tell me more a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, so I did my double degree at University of Sydney, and then they kind of opened it up as an option to be able to go and study abroad. I did a little bit of research, but I was very young, so I kind of looked at the map and I said, "Oh, Boston looks like a nice place," and so I applied to go to their School of Management, and then was awarded a scholarship, which was nice. So I studied there for about a year, and it was really interesting, I guess, to have that college experience in America and see the subtle differences between how the Americans learn versus kind of the Australians. There are differences. I think it was a really, really good kind of learning curve for me as well.
So most of your clients are in the US or in Australia?
No, so now they're all around the world. I would say only around like 15% are in Australia, but I charge in US dollars. Definitely kind of all around the US, but also the UK. This year I've had a client in Dubai, one in Sweden. So yeah, definitely all around the world, which is I really enjoy because it exposes me to different kind of, little architecture cultures around the world as well.
Congratulations. When did you launch NikitaMorell.com? How long ago?
So that was 2016 at the beginning. So 2015, 2016. So it's been running a while. But as the times progress, when I first launched the business, I was servicing artists and textile designers and kind of a bit more of a broad scope, not just architects. But as the years have gone on, I just realized how much I really enjoy working in the architecture space, in the architecture industry. I feel like, architects are just doing so much for this world, but I think they're not getting the recognition that they maybe deserve. So I've yeah, I feel like I can, with my skill set on copywriting, can help them especially. So yeah, I've kind of really niched down now. And as years progress, I get, I guess, more and more laser focused in who I'm offering my services to.
I like that you say you only work with only architects. So how did you come up with your ideal client? Because you talk about that a lot and I love it. Like only architects.
Yeah. I mean, look, again, like everything, it's marketing. And that's why I always tell architects who I say, look, you need to the world, sometimes you need to really own one thing and become an expert in that one thing because it makes you, I guess, easy to be top of mind when something comes up and people know that that's what you do. It's easy to be like, oh, have you heard of? And then they say your name. Whereas if you're a bit more of a generalist, which I think a lot of architects like, and there's nothing wrong with it, but that association is harder. So yeah, I do position myself as only architects, but every now and then, like earlier this year, I came across a fantastic facade company and they said we want to do some really fun copy and I took that project on and it was exciting and it was, I guess, a bit of a break in just servicing architects. So every now and then I do step outside, but yeah, for the right types of clients.
That's great. So what distinguishes copywriting from other forms of writing like articles or blog writing?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think it's definitely worth discussing. So, copywriting is not design journalism. It's not like just writing, design writing either. Copywriting really is a craft. It's a mix of it's like an art and a science put together. So you've got that creativity like element where you're trying to come up with ideas, but really at the end of the day, I like to think of it almost as like assembling. So it's really underpinned by marketing, by sales. I mean, all copywriting is at the end of the day is writing in a way to get someone to take some sort of an action. So you're trying to compel people to take an action, whatever that action is. But it's like every single word matters, and there's a lot of psychology that goes behind copywriting. So it's, I tell my clients, I'm never just going to sit down and start writing a website. I interview their past clients to see what types of words they're using. I do my own research. I do discovery sessions, but it's assembling the right words in the right structure and order.
So it's really like to get a call to action. So that's the copywriting equals if you're successful, you get the CTA and a successful CTA. Is that correct?
Exactly, and it's really about sounding different. It's the call to action. Yes, like that's a huge part of it, but I guess a few steps before that is how do you get someone to to click on that call to action button? It's developing that trust. It's, making them lean in and actually read the words, especially today when we're all so busy. It's so easy just to kind of scroll or if you're in a magazine, just flip through. But you've got an ad, to actually get people to look at it and read the words. So a lot of it is tone of voice, and how you sound as well.
So could you walk us through a copywriting process? Like when you onboard like that number one that and also is it different process from a small firm to a big firm? So what is your process when you start doing copy for a small firm versus a big firm?
Yeah, so you'll be surprised to hear that. I mean, with the actual process is pretty much the same. Just perhaps with a larger firm, there might be a few more players involved. There might be a few principals in the firm that all want their say, which also can be a bit hard. It's kind of that idea of writing by committee, or I'm sure you've heard of it in the architecture world, like design by committee. It's hard to get everyone on board. So I guess the upfront work in terms of the discovery session with larger firms can take a bit longer. But I would say the actual process is not that different. So, I send them a questionnaire, and that questionnaire sometimes, they say it's often the best part of the whole process because I ask really, I guess, questions that they probably haven't thought about before. A lot of people just start their own practice and it kind of takes a life of its own and evolves. So I ask them a questionnaire. We then have a discovery session where I really understand, what are their goals? Who are their ideal clients? What challenges are these ideal clients facing? And then I get on the phone and I start speaking to, or Zoom calls, I start speaking to their past clients. So people who have worked with them to get an objective outsider perspective, as well as to hear the types of words people are saying, and phrases. So then after that, that's when I start to kind of compile the copy, or assemble it, as I like to say. But that process is pretty much the same between a small and a large firm.
So do clients, are they vulnerable to hearing their clients' feedback? Like, are they like curious? Like, what did they say?
Yeah, so I usually send them the transcript, and then from that I write testimonials. But yeah, it's always interesting. And I guess because I'm an objective third party, I always kind of make that past client feel comfortable and say, look, give them the option as well, whether they want to share it. But yeah, it's always an interesting thing, and things come up, especially when you're working in a firm and it's your own firm. You're so close to your firm, it's hard to see it from a distance. So those calls are always full of gold.
Actually, I also hired a marketing firm during COVID to talk to my clients and see how I can improve because we weren't doing much. And it was so cringy for me to see because I was so nervous, but it turned out to be amazing. Like all the feedback that they gave. I mean, it was the best thing that I've ever done for my company was to hire a marketing consultant to interview a lot of my clients and getting the feedback. So I think that's a great strategy for your clients and they're lucky to have you so that they can get constructive feedback as well, right?
Exactly, exactly.
So, architecture firms have various marketing strategies to choose from. Most of them use social media to reach potential clients, like Instagram, right? Right now, Instagram is really big. But while social media is a useful strategy, why do you think having a website is the most important marketing strategy for architects?
Yeah, I mean, it's more like the behavior of people. Like, I mean, even if you get recommended someone, I mean, personally, the first thing I do is just Google. You just kind of, it's become almost like a second nature thing. Like, I'll just go Google them. Maybe we'll get to a point someday in the future where, you kind of hop on Instagram and check them. But I think for now, I think it's safe to say people just go on and they just Google their name. And then their LinkedIn or their social media might come up. But that's their first step. And I think with these social media platforms, we got to remember that they are owned by other people. So at any time, Instagram can change the algorithm in that. But when it comes to websites, like that is yours, like that is your little piece of real estate. You can be controlling what's going out at what time. And that's why it can be a really good, I guess, home base. This is where people are coming off social media, hopefully coming onto your website. So whilst they might find you on Instagram, hopefully they'll end up here. And this is why websites are so important and the words on your website are so important because it's just that extra step of creating that familiarity and that trust as well.
So, yeah, it's like, for instance, right? Photos are proven and, videos are amazing to establish trust and credibility. But how do words achieve the same goal if you have like 2 seconds? What's the typical amount of time a person will stay in the website before they leave? There's a term for that. So how are the words that important?
Yeah, so studies have shown that it's like 8 to 10 seconds, and so it's at above the fold. So before you start scrolling, you've got 8 to 10 seconds to immediately tell people they're in the right place. And that's how I like to think of it. It's like you've just walked into a room and it's like, okay, you're in the right place. So that's why a lot of architects I see have no words above the fold. It's just a beautiful image, which is nice. But even sometimes their URL or their logo, like there's no mention of the word architecture, perhaps if they're called, Nikita Morell Studios. So you don't even know this is an architecture practice website. So it's really important I'm a big ambassador of having a headline, so something that will really grab the attention of your ideal clients. And then also a subhead, which is the value proposition. So it's kind of like, okay, so this is who we are, this is who we serve, and this is the value that we add. So then if they've got 20 tabs open and they're doing their research, with yours at least, they're like, okay, I'm in the right place. This is for me. You really want, I guess, your ideal clients to land on this on your website and go, okay, this is for me.
Wow, you have a big job, Nikita. Right?
Yeah, I just want more architects to realize the value of words. I think they're visual creatures, architects, and yeah, words play a role.
So like when I first started my website in 2016, It was amazing. It looked great. But then I showed it to my sales consultant, and he said this, Aya, it looks great, but it sucks. And I'm like, what? Because there's no call to action. Exactly like what you said. Because I was in retail, like most of my architecture outsourcing was in retail. I did thousands of retail projects, but then I had to pivot because of the market. And then I hired a sales consultant, and he's like, we have to redo your website. And now I get it. But 8 years later, we're doing really well because of that pivot.
Yeah, and that's it. Like, I just want them to, I guess, architects to see copywriting, and I actually posted about this on LinkedIn yesterday, to see it as an investment. Just like really good photography is an investment. And it's not a cost, is what I like to say. It's you're investing in your firm, you're investing in your message, and it's going to help you get more of those right clients through the door and stop wasting time on those, inquiries that come in that are not a bad fit, a good fit.
Yes, I think you're right because a lot of firm owners in general have a hard time seeing hiring people like you and me as an investment because it's just an expense, right? Overall, I really think they should invest in good copy because a lot of websites don't even have CTAs, call to actions. It's just pretty pictures, and they're really losing opportunity. They only have 8 seconds, right? So, anyway, you've looked at over 663 architecture websites. That's probably grown since you mentioned, right? So, how many architecture websites have you reviewed, Nikita? Just out of curiosity.
Now, I mean, that 663 number was from 2019. So I would say almost probably double that
Oh my
now.
God.
I mean, yeah, like I've literally got a huge kind of list that I keep track. And yeah, so I mean, like, I guess the results of those 663 architecture websites I put up on my website, and I made little videos about my findings. But yeah, I guess as technology evolves, as my own copywriting skills evolve, I'm definitely seeing different things, and noticing, different ways architects can improve. Or even I think a huge thing is borrowing from other industries. I think sometimes architects, like the architecture industry, can be quite closed, and we kind of look inside, whereas software companies, in terms of messaging and branding, and how they're getting clients through the door, and health industry, like there's lots of different industries that are doing amazing things, and I think it's up to, I really want to help architects borrow some ideas from these different industries and apply it to their websites as well.
So, what are the top three mistakes people make, especially architecture firms, in their website?
So number one, I would say a lot of architecture websites, not all, but a lot are quite me-centric. So it's a bit like, we've done this, we've done that, we've won awards, we've got 25 years of experience. And I think architects need to learn to flip it, or need to flip it, the messaging. So instead of saying, we are so amazing, it's flipping it to say, your project is going to be so amazing when you work with us. So it's like a reframe. So it's like saying, really speaking directly to your ideal clients. So even on the website, instead of saying our clients, say you. So every time they have the word client, just hit replace and write you, because then you're breaking down that third wall, and speaking directly to your ideal clients. So that's one mistake. Another one, very general, but I think it's just a lack of words. I see so many project portfolios on websites, and they're just a carousel of images with no words. You need words to give your projects context, to tell a story, to tell people where to look and what to look at. You don't tell people what to look at when they're looking at these project images. They're making up their own stories, which is fine, but it also might be not what you want them to see. So you want to tell them about the client brief, how you responded to it, and things like that. And third, I would say, maybe not like, I would say third mistake is the website biographies. I think architects can do a little better with these. I think a lot of them are just glorified CVs.
Yeah.
I went to university here, I did this, these are my responsibilities. I'd like to see a little bit more personality come through in these bios, telling people what you do outside of work, getting your ideal clients to see you as human, I think, is a big one. So yeah, they're my top three.
Yeah, authenticity is really one of the keys, right? So a lot of the websites now have like typical, standard about us, services, projects, testimonials. In your opinion, what should architects focus on in their websites? Like what's essential if they don't have time? A lot of solopreneurs don't have time to do everything, especially when they're doing their own thing. So what do you think is key?
I think the key, probably a big part is the about page. So it's really, I guess, communicating, who you are, but also like why you're doing what you're doing. Especially for these kind of smaller practices, what you believe in, and kind of, yeah, what your vision, your mission is. But you need to do it in a way that is going to appeal to your ideal clients. Remember, you keep going back to them and saying, well, what will my ideal client think of this? So you've got to use language that's going to resonate with them. But I think that's a really important kind of part of it is kind of saying, we stand for this, whether it's sustainability or it's a really nice experience, client experience, but yeah, I think that's really crucial is the about page on your website.
So I can imagine clients when you ask them to pick one ideal client, you could get a pushback from them because, they always say that, we want to diversify, we can't put all our eggs in one basket. How do you convince clients like that to listen to you and say, you needed one ideal client?
Yeah, look, and it's a tough gig, but there's lots of different ways around that. One of them is that ideal client, it doesn't have to be a specific type of client. So for example, it doesn't have to be, just say you're an architecture firm, you're offering residential and commercial architecture. Those two people are very different. Like one, you may be ideal client's a property developer, the other one's a homeowner. So instead of doing that, maybe you can position yourself and say, well, is there any crossover in what they think? Perhaps it's that they respect and value good design. So then your ideal client is someone who respects and values good design. So what type of project, it doesn't matter. That's their one thing that kind of connects them. So that's one way of going about it. Another way is just having separate pages on your website that talk to each audience in a different way. So, and I've been seeing this a lot lately on firms that offer different services. They might have 3 kind of tiles and say, who are you? Are you a homeowner, a property developer? And it's like a choose your own adventure. So they can click in and then that copy is speaking to them directly.
So in terms of conversion rate, right? And client success, can you talk about your most successful client? One, and number 2, a client that really was hesitant to hire you and then you converted them like, oh my God, Nikita's the best. So you have people who already worship you, but you have people who are just like, because another partner told them to hire you. So can you talk about 2 or 1, a successful, an experience, a client experience?
So I guess like one, maybe even just some of my earlier clients, I think it was very different back even 5 years ago. I think now more archi marketers within this space. But one of my first clients was an commercial architecture firm in Sydney. And yeah, they took a big risk by hiring me. It was a bit outside their budget. But we created some really clever copy and their clients, because sometimes, I work with these people, they launch the website and I never hear from them again. So it's really on me to keep going back every few years saying, how's it going? But this one client, they're called Sissons and they're in, Sydney. And he said, that website copy has allowed us to get more of the right clients. And not only that, he said it's been able to allow them to pick and choose what they want to work on now. So they've got a bit more, they're empowered. So that was a great project. And then maybe for the clients who are hesitant, I have this program called SiteSmart. And some of the people that come through that, they're always a bit hesitant. And that program is where I help architects over 6 weeks get their website copy done. And yeah, I can't talk about one in particular, but I think a lot of them come in thinking, oh, is this really going to work? And at the end of the 6 weeks, they see like a before and after of what their website was 6 weeks ago and where it is now. And it's just like, they feel, I think it's that confidence that, yeah, I'm ready to kind of go out into the world and put my firm out there. So that confidence is something that good copy can give you as well.
And I really think to my listeners, because most of my listeners are architects, they really need to hire a copywriter, 100%. Because the first person that I hired was my marketing manager who revised my website because he couldn't work with it. And it was the best investment I've made in my career, really. Because that's your landing page, right? That's your first impression. So, yeah, absolutely hire a copywriter. Now, my next topic is newsletters, and I'm really curious to find out about newsletters. Another colleague of mine who's an architect said he gets most of his clients from newsletters all over the world. He does high end residential modular homes, and he's built in Colombia and in like Martha's Vineyard. And I'm like, he's a Cleveland firm. And I'm like, how do you get your clients? He's like, newsletters. People have been watching me for the last 10 years. And when they have enough money, they hire him 10 years later. So it's a lot of work to get a mailing list. Can you talk about first how to build your mailing list as an architect? Because I know from a marketing background, I mean, I don't have a marketing background, but I know you need like lead magnets and things like that. So how does like maybe a firm that is ready to onboard you, like maybe they already have 3 to 5 employees, how do you get them to get started with newsletter and getting a mailing list, number one? And number two, the content around it. But let's start with the first one.
Yeah.
How do they get mailing lists? Like,
So I think you've actually, like, it's important, but I think you need to switch it around because actually, so I know this. So this year I launched a masterclass, which is on my website, called Email Newsletter in 1 hour. So it's a 1 hour course. It's made specifically for architects, but the whole point of the course is exactly this. It's showing architects that your newsletter, it's exactly that, a newsletter. So we need to focus on the letter part of it because it's just a one-on-one conversation with your clients. So actually building and having this big list is not as valuable as you think. So what I always say is a small list of the right people, even if it's like 50 people on your list, is better than building this massive list through lead magnets and that, and having just people who, oh yeah, I was cruising by, I was interested, put my name in. They're not the types of people you want. You want to be creating a one-on-one relationship with every single person on your list. So even for myself, so I email every two weeks, but my emails, that's another thing architects, I feel like I'm giving away all my secrets, but one of the things architects, you don't need to have this beautifully designed email that has, that has to be sent out every month. I always tell architects, don't label your newsletter like a weekly or a monthly or a, seasonal newsletter. Just when you have something to say, when you feel like saying something, just put it out there. It doesn't have to be designed or in a template. It can just be a plain text email. So that's what I've been doing with my list. And I think a huge part is just, especially for solo architecture firms or small firms where the director or the founder has a lot of, they work closely with the clients. As your friend did, he developed that trust over time. So that's what architects need to be doing, is just developing that trust. Talk about what you did on the weekend and relate that to your firm. But it doesn't have to be about architecture, your newsletter. So that's my biggest tip, is it doesn't have to be about the projects you're working on or that. It just has to be giving a little bit away of you as a person and what you would be like to work with.
so in general, just talking about their weekend and their work life, what are examples of a good newsletter? Like,
Yes, I always say start off with like an anecdote, or just a story that's happened to you, and then relate it to something about your firm. It can be about your kids or something funny they said. If you want examples, sign up to my email newsletter because you'll see a lot. I talk about typos that I've made, like funny typos, or I once wrote about a snake that came into our garden. But every time I say a story, I relate it back and give them a lesson. What you're doing is you're giving value. You're teaching for free, essentially. So when that person is ready, they feel like they've got all their knowledge from you. And, their first person in their head is like, well, if I need to make a modular home, they're going to go to your friend because they've been getting everything they know from him, and they feel like they already know him. They feel like you can trust him. He's got the credibility behind him. So that's why I'm very passionate about newsletters.
but thank you so much for what you do, Nikita. I'm really enjoying everything because I'm also trying all these strategies in my company. when you work with a client, when is it time for you to step back? Or do you train them in terms of copywriting? Because it's very cyclical, right? There's a lot of projects that go in and out. Like, how can people work with you? If people don't want to do a course because they're too busy, how does that work in terms of continuing to work with you after the initial engagement?
Yeah, so two parts. So yeah, like my Site Smart course, that's where I'm teaching people how to write copy. So I'm helping them do their copy, but at the same time teaching. I think those skills are very important. But if they don't have the time or they can't afford it, then I've got do-it-yourself toolkits on the website. I've tried to tier my services to make sure it can cater for even the smallest people who haven't even started their firm yet. They're just feeling the waters. Those toolkits just help them step by step, like this is what you do. And they've got lots of examples. I think real life examples are always great. So I'm a big fan of those to show people what it can look like once you work through the steps. But yeah, usually my clients, the bigger ones, they stay in touch. For example, I just had an architecture firm in Brooklyn, in New York, wrote all their copy, I think it was 2 years ago. And then they've just come back because they've grown so big. And they said, we've got 20 more projects that we need you to write descriptions for. So I hadn't heard from them in 2 years, and then now I'm writing more of their descriptions. So I guess it's like an ongoing relationship like that.
So as we're about to wrap up our podcast, this is what I ask all my entrepreneur women. Who is Nikita outside of work? Can you talk about like your kids or the things that you do for fun? Who is Nikita outside of work?
Yes, I love weaving. I've got like a big Japanese floor loom. So I do a lot of textile weaving, and I feel that that's kind of besides my 3 young kids, I feel like that's my kind of me time where I can sit and I'm just using my hands. I can't do anything else with my hands. I can't scroll or type. It's just me and my loom. So I create lots of artworks and display and even exhibit sometimes as well. So that's what I like to do.
That's great.
And run after.
So, where do you see yourself 3 years from now?
That's a good question. My dream is to get to one of the AIA conferences and present there. Like that's my big goal at the moment. I want to get to either Chicago or I think the next one after is in Boston. I don't know, maybe rumors. But yeah, I would love to, I've made so many connections in the US and even the UK actually. And I would love to kind of do a bit of traveling and meet some of the wonderful people I've connected with online, like yourself.
That's awesome. So, is there anything we need to know about your courses, or what are the upcoming coaching programs and courses do you have right now or in the website that you want to share with our audience?
Yes, I've got 2. One Site Smart, that 6-week program where I help architects just get their website done, has opened just today, so the timing's very good. And that enrollment will be for a week. So there's only 15 spots available, but honestly, like big game changer. And secondly, I'm actually going to be doing, hopefully towards the end of this year, end of November, a webinar or a masterclass on how architects can use ChatGPT for all their website copy and project descriptions and all of that as well. So that's just a whole course, a whole guide, I think of 100. And gosh, I've been writing prompts for the last week. So that's that'll be hopefully really good for anyone who's interested in learning a little bit more about how they can use that tool.
Thank you so much, Nikita. I'll make sure we'll drop it in the links. And thank you so much for what you do for the industry. We architects all need to improve the profession and the business side. And you really need people like copywriters to know more about marketing strategies to really keep your firms profitable and, recession proof, right?
Exactly.
Anyway, I really enjoyed our conversation, Nikita. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's my absolute pleasure. Thanks.
That was Nikita Morell, founder of Architects WordShop. Thanks for listening to this episode of Architect My Life, a podcast brought to you by MGS Global Group. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you'd like to add to the conversation through your own experiences, I encourage you to be a guest in one of our upcoming episodes. Visit architectmylife.com to apply and learn how. I firmly believe that a strong community drives change and fosters success. If you'd like to be part of this community, join the All Women Architect My Life Facebook group. Please take a moment to review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks again for listening. I'm Aya Schlochter. Until next time.